The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was very formative in the way that businesses operate today. The history of the act is just as important. There were many different executive orders and acts passed in order to pave the way for the Civil Rights Act to be enacted. In June of 1941, Executive Order 8802 was signed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt to prohibit employment discrimination by government employers. In 1941, discrimination in employment was a significant issue for women and people of color in the United States. President Roosevelt designed this executive order to apply to all government defense contractors, but it did not apply to enforcement titles. He signed this order to ensure that nobody would get in his way of producing military equipment that he needed during World War II. President Harry S. Truman helped continue the movement towards achieving the Civil Rights Act by signing Executive Order 9981. Executive Order 9981 was structured to desegregate the armed forces and offer equal opportunity for people without discrimination on race, color, religion, or national origin. However, we did not fully integrate our soldiers until 1952 when the Korean War began. We also did not incorporate women into any of these executive orders so far, so employment and military services were still not equal. During John F. Kennedy's time in office, he signed Executive Order 10925. This order is very similar to all of the other ones I've previously mentioned. However, this one fully prevented federal government employers from discriminating against anyone based on race. This order also established the President's Committee on Equal Employment Opportunity. He established this to end job discrimination once and for all. This brings us one step closer to having equal rights. The last form of legislation passed before the Civil Rights Act is known as the Equal Pay Act of 1963. In June of 1963, Congress passed the Equal Pay Act, also known as the EPA of 1963. This act ensures that men and women who do the same work get the same pay. The EPA was the first legislation to focus on employment discrimination specifically. This is the first thing from Congress to address the issue, whereas all of the previous executive orders came straight from the President. Finally, in June of 1964, the Civil Rights Act is passed. This was considered the longest debate in all of Senate history, but it finally passed with a 73-27 vote. Then, it was passed to the House of Representatives, where they also agreed to pass it. 500 amendments were added before this was finally signed into law after 534 hours of debate. Before the Civil Rights Act, many things were not equal. For example, restaurants, schools, and even water fountains were segregated. There was also discrimination in the workplace. People of color and women were often denied work or given unequal pay until after the Equal Pay and Civil Rights Acts were passed. This led to major turmoil and upset all across the country, leading to many demonstrations like marches, sit-ins, and boycotts to spread like wildfire, and they all just demanded change across the country. Finally, after many years and countless demands for change, the Civil Rights Act was passed. This led to newfound equality within public places and especially the workforce. The workforce specifically was labeled under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Under Title VII, it demanded that there should be no discrimination in hiring based on race, national origin, religion, or gender. Many were thrilled to have a chance to be equal in their work, and women were now allowed to expand into more jobs they were often denied from before. Many more qualified people who were being discriminated against were now hired in places they deserved to be. This also protects people from being fired due to any racial, religious, or gender discrimination.